Good evening, everyone. Welcome back to the Savage Goose. I'm Goose, and tonight is the start of a new series of live streams or podcasts, and I haven't entirely decided what the format entirely is going to be. But on these series, the goal is to go over news of Pinnacle and Savage Worlds and just kind of let you know what's going on in the community. And then we're going to dive into a topic and just kind of discuss it in length. Tonight, we're going to talk about the Sci-Fi Companion, but first, let's go over what's happening in the community. So if you don't know, there is a newsletter from Pinnacle that you can subscribe to. I subscribe to it. I watch it all or read it every week to see what's going on. And the big news this week was that the announcement date for the Sci-Fi Companion, or when the Kickstarter is going to be done, has been released. And it's going to be February 20th is when the Sci-Fi Companion will release on Kickstarter. As far as when the project will you can back and everything. Never sure what to call it. The Kickstarter. When the Kickstarter happens, that's what's going to happen. Science Fiction Companion for SWADE finally happening. Super excited. I think this has probably been one of the most requested or most anticipated companions outside of maybe the Fantasy Companion. But I know that there's a lot that was going into that. But before I get ahead of myself and start talking about that, let's go and talk about what else is happening in the community. From Pinnacle, they did release the final files for the Night Train, so you should have gotten those if you backed it in your Drive-Thru RPG invitation, also through Pinnacle. If you have it on your Pinnacle account itself, you should have everything there. So things should be now moving along nicely for that. If you backed the Rifts Terror in the Dark Frontier, you should be getting those physical books, either already gotten them or should be getting them soon. The SWAG award winners were announced this last Thursday. I've been working on a video to kind of talk about through all of them, but I will definitely have to do a link, I guess, somewhere in the show notes at some point, probably after this video is all done recording. I'll go ahead and go down into the comments, into the description, that's what it's called, and put in all the information for everything we talk about tonight. But basically what SWAG is the Savage Worlds Adventurer Guild. Or Adventurers Guild, where you can publish content as a normal creator for Savage Worlds through a special license that's different than their official ACE licensees who have official licensed content that's kind of done on their own as a third party, whereas the SWAG community is basically regular people, more or less, like you and me, writing content for the Adventurers Guild and selling it through there. Basically a little less requirements for perfection that Savage Worlds wants for their ACE content. But the top winners, the top free product and the top 10 selling products from SWAG were all announced last week for 2023. Go ahead and go check that out. See there's some great stuff in there. So yeah, go ahead and check it out so you can see what's all in there to check it out. I should check it out a lot there. I should work on that. The other thing, and this was actually the licensee spotlight for this week's newsletter, and actually one of the things I wanted to talk about as a more major piece of the news today, the Kickstarter for Sidewinder Recoiled. And let me go ahead and I'm not super used to StreamYard yet, so I'm still getting used to the presentation side of things here. But let me go and share my screen, and we will show the Sidewinder Recoiled. There we go. Making sure you guys can see that nice amount there. Perfect. Looks great. So this is the Kickstarter. It launched yesterday, and we are only less than $500 away from getting to their goal with only 19 days to go. And like I said, it was launched yesterday. Yeah, yesterday at 1 p.m. Eastern time. Yeah, there we go. No. I'll run through till the 29th. Am I getting my dates wrong? No, that's right. I'm just bad at math. That's all. Dates and times, just bad math. Anyways, so here you go. I had not backed the project yet. Today was literally the last day of one of my jobs, and I'm going to start another job Monday. So I just want to make sure all my ducks in a row when it comes to money. But I do fully plan on backing this. So what is Sidewinder Recoiled? A lot of you, if you're familiar with Savage Worlds, you're probably familiar with Deadlands, which is a weird West setting where it not only have the Western stuff, but you also have a lot of alternate history, different things happen. I know some of the big stuff, but I don't want to kind of get into it too much. Basically, alternate history, and there's magic, and there's a lot of stuff. Sidewinder Recoiled, from what I've read, seems more realistic to normal Western. So I'm getting ahead of myself again about sci-fi. Normal Western kind of content where you have gunslingers and cattle herders and all this other kind of stuff. Just basically think a Western movie without any of the extra like aliens or anything like that, like Cowboys versus Aliens or anything like that. It's just a Western movie setting. And there is a great jumpstart. We'll go through, I guess, the Kickstarter first, but basically what you're backing here, something they talk about here is that they do divide this Sidewinder Recoiled. That's what the name of the setting is. And I should actually also mention that this is the 20th anniversary of Sidewinder Recoiled, and because they had their own system. I believe it was a D20 based system, and now they've adapted it from their normal system into Savage Worlds. You can see here, it was an Emmy Award winner back in 2004. So this is the new version for 20th anniversary for the Savage Worlds system. Now, the guys who have worked on this, I'm trying to remember the names right now. Carl Kiesler, and I'm so sorry, guys. I remember Carl's name because I talked to him a little bit more. And Chris Warner. These guys have worked on other products for Savage Worlds. I believe Carl said that they had worked on Savage Pathfinder, and they are Doghouse Rules is a Ace licensee, so they have the ability to like partner with Pinnacle to make this content. And yeah, so the Kickstarter, I'm gonna try to get back to it real quick. Navigating tabs, it can be a nightmare sometimes. But going back there, they do divide the game into two parts of the 19th century, 1800s, basically 1804 to 1849 and 1849 to 1899. And one thing they mentioned here that got me super interested is that there's going to be 100 edges, and having read the edges in the jumpstart, I'm super excited about what those other I think 80 edges are in this book, because the first 20 I saw from the jumpstart looked like a lot of fun, and definitely something you can incorporate into almost any Western thing. That's the nice thing about a lot of these Savage Worlds products is that even though they're maybe designed for a particular system, you can easily take them and put them into a system that has similar setting vibes, or even maybe something outside of a normal setting. So definitely we'll take a look at those in a moment. Now, what they are doing here is they are backing the PDFs. So you're backing the product, and you're getting a PDF delivery, and then you can also back to get the option to get the book printed at cost, at base cost, through DriveThruRPG, basically through usually through a coupon code. This is a pretty common workflow for a lot of smaller publishers, just to work through DriveThruRPG to give you a coupon to buy the book at cost. So yeah, nothing surprising there. Because I'm kind of a little bit of a completionist, I'll probably just get the big bug one. Even though the whole kit and caboodle does seem really cool, because they do like a custom illustration that's like matching a description you give them, which could be yourself, and using it on other content. But honestly, I'm probably just going to go with the big bug, just because I think that gets me everything I want. It gives me the option to get everything printed. So that's what I fully plan on getting myself. And again, I go through here. There is some stretch goals at 6,000, 7,000, 8,000, which considering they are already at, what was it? 4,000 in less than 48 hours. It definitely seems achievable to me. So definitely go check that out. I am going to jump over again. We're going to get to Sci-Fi Companion. I promise we are going to get there, but we're going to jump over to talk about just kind of look over at the actual book. The jumpstart itself. I do not have access to the book. I don't have any extra information that you guys don't have. I'm just kind of talking about what I do know through the jumpstart and everything. And the jumpstart is available through DriveThruRPG. Again, I will link it in the description after the show is over. Let me pull up the window here. Share. And I always hate this. There we go. That's better. So let's see. We're going to get rid of that banner too. So this is the PDF here. I have it over here on the screen. And this cover looks awesome. I think the design overall shows a very nice level of professionalism. I feel like I didn't care about this kind of thing a whole lot before I started like reviewing books. I'm realizing no, I actually care a lot about the looks of these books, and I love the design of this book. It might be just because I really like the black and gold color scheme when it comes to design. But I think this looks great. Here's the table of contents. You can kind of get an idea of everything that's going on here. towards the end of the document, you see all of the pre-generated characters for the adventure. That's part of the Jumpstart, which is just called Soul Survivor. And it's basically going through a showdown, which is like a tournament that you are entered into, and is one of the setting rules for Sidewinder Recoiled. So that aside, I'm just going to go jump into what I'm super excited about, which is the hindrances, edges, and then the setting rules that they mention here. This is not everything. Again, this is just a few of the things they're mentioning, but it's what gets me really excited is kind of seeing character options, because even though I'm a forever DM, I like seeing character options. It gets me a lot of excitement. So let's go and look at the hindrances here. They don't mention a whole lot. They do mention two that are from the book, and they're basically just trying to give you an idea of how to use those particular hindrances. So code of honor, how you would use this in this setting. So I'll just let you read that on its own. Nothing much, not a whole lot there for me to kind of go over. One of the things here down here is the young hindrance, and basically saying what is young in this setting, because in the 1870s, average life expectancy 40 years. Reading that gave me a little bit of a panic attack, just because I'm like, I'm 30, I'll be 32 this year. I'm like, okay, that's not a lot left, but luckily we don't live in the 1870s anymore. But in the 1870s, they say that when you hit 12 years or older, you are considered an adult. So if you are playing a young character with like a minor young hindrance, you are looking at 9 to 12 years old. And if you are wanting to get the major young hindrance, you have to be a real little kid. So I personally don't know if I want to play young when I have to play like a 9 to 12-year-old or a major version like under 9. I don't know if I really want to play with someone like that, but I think there could be some cool opportunities there for the people who know what they're doing. All right. Then you mentioned the greenhorn one here, which is someone who is just not used to the Wild West yet, right? I don't really have experience of how things work. So that's the hindrances. There's not a whole lot in the Jumpstart, but there will likely be a lot more in the full book. They're just giving what you need to play the game, play this adventure specifically. Background edges. Jumps a little too far. There we go. We got home ground, outlaw, tribal. There's a few other background edges. We got some combat edges. That kind of. I like this one here, the slip hammer or slip shooting. Yeah, rapid fire, double tap, which double tap I think is this standard combat edge works as usual, except that there's additional things going on there with double tap. And you see this often within books where it's like, hey, we're doing the same thing as the original, like from the core rule books, but slight modification. There is one additional professional edge mentioned here, which is the merchant. And then they mentioned Woodsman because Woodsman is used a lot for different renowned edges. And because it's a professional edge, they want to just call it out like, hey, this is a requirement for a lot of things. You should know that when you're looking into getting new edges and stuff, know that there is a lot of edges that require this. And that's what we're bringing into the renowned edges. Now, real quick, we are going to look at here where it says weird edges. There are some weird edges that can work. They kind of say like they're going to, in the big book, they'll mention some more things about that. One of the things I noticed is that there's not really any magic in here because, again, this is supposed to be more of a realistic Western setting. There's not really the expectation of magic, I don't think, like there is in Deadlands. But I feel like I read somewhere that there is an option or will be an option in the main book for some sort of Weird West thing. But I haven't seen anything in the Kickstarter or in the document here. So I may have made that up in my mind as like some sort of optional thing they might add. But I maybe there is, and maybe I just read it somewhere else and I don't remember. But I haven't seen it in the Kickstarter or here. So maybe I'm making it up. So renowned edges is one of the things that they're like really pushing in this book in this book and in the Jumpstart, and that is the these. My brother-in-law is calling them class edges, but I don't think they're class edges. I think they're an edge tree, and that we have those in Savage Worlds. We have edges that have other requirements that you have to do before you can get the edge beyond it. And that's just what's happening here. You can see here you got bounty hunter, and the idea, going back a little bit, is that the idea of these renowned edges is that when you come into the Wild West, you may have had another profession of some sort, and now you need to take those skills you had in that one profession and adapt them to a new profession in the Wild West. Example here for bounty hunter is that you used to be a woodsman or a soldier, and now you're taking those skills as a woodsman and soldier and using them to be a bounty hunter. That bounty hunter edge unlocks these two edges as well. This edge here, leave them empty-handed, is not requiring you to have hog tying. It's just requiring you to have this bounty hunter edge. There's other edges like that happen in the core rule books, in the fantasy books, etc. I'm not going through all these, but you can kind of get the idea that there are, like, this one requires a trademark weapon and pistol. This one requires you being a soldier. This one requires you being a scholar. All that kind of stuff. You get it. So there is an adventure. There is some pre-generated characters that you can use if you want to go run through this with some friends for like a one-shot. Highly recommend that you take a look at this jumpstart. Again, I'll link it down in the description after the show. And I highly recommend that you check out the Kickstarter. Again, I'll link that down in the description below. So now more onto the main topic, and that is of today's show, and that's talking about the Sci-Fi Companion. Let me just kind of get a few things oriented here. And gotta find what I'm looking for. So let's go ahead and pull up the Kickstarter for the Science Fiction Companion. There we go. There it is. Let me see if I can make it a little bit nicer for everybody. Oop. Yeah. There we go. So sorry. And here we go. By the way, leave a comment down below what you think of that Kickstarter if you have any comments. And leave any comments you have about the Sci-Fi Companion as we talk about it, because I definitely want to hear your thoughts. Okay, so this is the companion. This is the launch page for the companion on Kickstarter. If you want to get notified when this goes live, go over there to the Kickstarter, hit the notify me button, and you can be notified when the Kickstarter goes live on February 20th. I am absolutely going to be like 100% backing that, probably day of, within the hour, something like that, at the highest reasonable level, because I want all the goodies and I want that companion. I know so many people who have been waiting for the companion to do certain projects. I know some people have basically decided they can't wait any longer to release certain sci-fi products for SWAdE. But I also know people who are like waiting to do their final versioning of certain products, not necessarily official products. I know, for instance, the Star Wars Savage Worlds community is definitely waiting to do a big iteration update to their to their document once the Sci-Fi Companion comes out, and see if there's anything there that can help them do anything inside the Star Wars system. Yeah, so I want to talk about, though, like what I think is going to be in this book, because one of the things I read, I think it was on the Reddit, was that one of the reasons that this got delayed so long to being like the last companion. We've had the Sci-Fi Companion, we had the Superpowers Companion, we had the Horror Companion, and actually the order was Superpowers Companion, which I think in terms of the content of the book, while that book is still fairly large, the Superpowers Companion I think overall is actually fairly slim on how much content is there. Most of the book is the showing of all these different superheroes and their abilities and stuff. And that's, I'm not saying it's a problem or anything. I'm just saying it seems like overall I think it's actually less content than, say, the Fantasy Companion, which has a very large amount of information that's added to it. And then the Horror Companion I think is not quite up there with the Fantasy Companion, but there is a lot of information and rules and stuff that are added to the Horror Companion to help create that horror game. But you would think that the Horror Companion would be the on the back burner when it comes compared to the Sci-Fi Companion. And so one of the reasons why I heard was that the reason that they waited so long to do the Sci-Fi Companion is because they had to figure out basically create the scope of how much content and what content and what are the bounds of the content, the limits that they can do for this book. I expect that this will be the biggest companion that we will have for SWAdE. So large, in fact, that maybe we might actually have to split it into different subsections of sci-fi, but they are, so far, they seem to be just going science fiction. We may have to have some sort of other companion to deal with some other things that maybe aren't specific to sci-fi, but maybe lend themselves to sci-fi or to modern settings or something like that. And when looking at what kind of content is going to be in this book, we have to turn to the previous version. This is the Savage Worlds Sci-Fi Companion for the Deluxe Edition. I got this back when I was running the last Parsec in Deluxe Edition. And just to give you an idea of what I'm talking about when it comes to like how much bigger the companions are compared to previous editions, something I've actually said that, but they're a lot bigger than previous editions. So here is the Fantasy Companion for SWAdE. It's by the way, I think it's a beautiful book. I love it. I like that they're going with a very like the same style essentially for everything, having this like this here. The only complaint about that is that the core rulebook is not like that. I wish the core rulebook would have followed the same like scheme here, like just saying core rules across the top, like across right here, so they all matched. And actually, in the Deluxe Edition, the Sci-Fi Companion was actually the outlier. This one didn't match the other ones, although I didn't care for the other ones' looks, so this actually is fine. But here's how thick the Fantasy Companion is. Here's how thick the old Sci-Fi Companion was. This is about 90 some pages. This one is what, 200 and some pages, 270 pages for the new Fantasy Companion. And the old Fantasy Companion was, closer to this, right? Closer in size to this. And just thinking about all the things that you have to cover in sci-fi, like all the things that count as sci-fi, there's a lot to go over. And you got to figure out like what are the bounds of it. I think one that we're going to start with is just like the content in here should be in SWAdE, right? SWAdE versions of this content shouldn't be there. And having looked through these things here, that there was races and there were racial attributes or abilities, I should say, for like creating your own races and both positive and negative. That's some sample races, hindrances, all that kind of stuff. I will say, I think that in the new companion, there will be a lot more hindrances, a lot more edges for sci-fi, because the like this book, it's literally like you got 1 page of hindrances and then 1 page of edges, and I feel like there's so much room for so much more in a sci-fi book than just 1 page of edges. The gear section was fairly large. And one of the things that I actually, when I was reading through this again, I was surprised to see, I had kind of forgotten about, because I did use this way back when, but there is sections in here for essentially mechs, mech suits. So you can do your Gundam or I'm trying to think of some other good mech shows right now. I actually really enjoy mech shows. I don't know why I can't thinking of any right now. Yeah. Well, anyways, and that is in here. I kind of forgot about that personally. There's sections on robots, and there's sections on pretty much setting rules. That's another area I think that we could see a lot more. The setting rules page is just like 2 pages, and I think there's a lot of opportunity for more in there. There's a section on hacking, which is very short. It's a very short section on hacking. They're talking about interface 0, 2.0, and here we are on interface 3.0 on SWAdE. So I imagine that probably some of the hacking rules that are in interface 0 will probably be brought into the new Sci-Fi Companion. So I fully expect that. I'm gonna go and make this up a little bit. There we go. Yeah, I got a little bit bigger. And kind of looking through this book, I did feel like here's the section for walkers, as they call them here. Gundams, mechs, whatever you want to call them. And things to do different modifications for them, to give them different abilities. A whole entire section about making different planets and worlds. And I think what I expect from the new companion is a lot of what's already in here, but just turned up a notch. Maybe some more art, more options in general. Just take all the sections that we have here and just kind of expand them by a lot. But one of the discussions I kind of got into was like, what do we count as sci-fi for the purposes of the Sci-Fi Companion? And we can look towards this a little bit to see what kind of things we're talking about. Obviously, the last parsec, which kind of gives sort of a Star Trek-esque vibe, or like that kind of genre of sci-fi. It has that little bit of vibe where you're exploring and you're kind of going out and such. But also, like, what about space operas like Star Wars? Is that something that goes into the Sci-Fi Companion? Maybe a little bit of or should we expect to see any sort of arcane backgrounds? I don't think there's any in this book. I have to double check again, but I don't believe there's any arcane backgrounds in this, which sort of makes sense. But there's also some settings that definitely have arcane-esque backgrounds in their sci-fi worlds. The Force Jedis are kind of that. They're kind of they're kind of arcane backgrounds in a sense, or that's how we would interpret them in Savage Worlds. So does that go? Should we expect something like that in here, or do we just expect that we'll be referred to the Fantasy Companion for that kind of thing? And then there's also, we also had some discussions about what's hard sci-fi versus soft sci-fi. And if you look at the Fantasy Companion, there's a section that talks about like high fantasy versus low fantasy, and like what kind of setting rules changes you would make for those kind of things. And I think that's kind of what we're probably going to see inside the Sci-Fi Companion as well. But also hacking, like, do we consider cyberpunk a subsection of sci-fi? To expect that inside the Sci-Fi Companion, or could we expect that a cyberpunk setting or may have its own thing? You could say that Interface Zero is kind of its own thing, and that's what you would use, or the fan made. I don't know if it's a Ace license or a SWAG product. The Sprawl Runners book is a great resource for hacking and for like that cyberpunk type stuff. But again, do we expect that in the new Sci-Fi Companion as well? So by the way, if you have thoughts, if you have comments, please leave them in the comment section so I can hear your thoughts about the Sci-Fi Companion and what you're hoping to see. On the cover, we definitely see a strong military presence in the sci-fi. So I imagine there's going to be some level of military-esque sci-fi, like trying to think some good TV shows or media pieces that would go into that. A little bit of Starship Troopers, but that's more, I believe. I haven't seen Starship Troopers. I know that's like a big sin because I keep hearing people talk about it inside of Savage Worlds podcast and stuff. But so yeah, emphasis on military. Well, Firefly definitely has a mixture of Western, which we talked about earlier, and then but also still being in space. You have Rebellion. So in a sense, we have a little bit of that punk, like sci-fi punk-esque things. So yeah, the question is just what kind of sci-fi should we expect? And it's also one of the things I'm kind of asking myself, just what kind of things are we seeing? So I'd love to hear your thoughts. I expect that, again, like I said, I think what my expectations are is that we will just see a lot of what is already in here, just turned up a notch. I think we'll see mechs in the new book turned up. I think we're going to see much more customizable options, essentially, for all the things that we should expect from sci-fi when it comes to starships and battleships and stuff. We will probably see that those same kind of things turned up a notch. We'll probably see more gear, more edges, more hindrances, more racial attributes to use for character creation, for race creation. Yeah. I don't know if I actually have much else to say. I thought I'd go on for quite a while about that. But I think that's pretty much all I have to say. I'm very excited for it. Again, like I said, I'm going to back it like day of, and I'm excited to see how many sci-fi products will start coming out once the Sci-Fi Companion is released, just to kind of add to, use the Sci-Fi Companion as a basis to kind of launch all these other products. We've seen, like I said, some sci-fi products come out recently that are that kind of haven't been able to wait. And I think we're also seeing a lot of blending of genres recently that has created interesting settings, and that usually are basing off of multiple companions. Yeah, I think I had one more thing I was going to say about this, and I completely forget what it was, and I am so sorry about that. Um, hoping to have a section that just like fancy setting rules, star bases. Oh, star bases. Yes. Did we have a section on that? Because the Fantasy Companion had a section on strongholds, and having a section on bases or star bases essentially would be really cool, especially or even like outposts. Having like rules for outposts would be super interesting too. Like or setting up a colony if you're doing more uh the kind of like management game style play where you're like a man like you're running an organization that is doing colonies, or if you work in Starfleet essentially and you're ensuring that you have a fleet of ships going out there, and you have one central base location. Yeah, that would be super cool to see. Did that exist in the previous version? That's what I'm trying to figure out. Starships equals walkers, world maker, power armor, cyberware. I didn't mention cyberware, which I think definitely there has to be cyberware in the new one. I think not sure. There has to be more options. I think that's what we're probably going to see, because in reality, I feel like this book actually covered a lot of different things that we would want to see. Just I think we need to see more options. Yeah, there is nothing about star bases though that I can see. And yes, Xavier, that would be super cool to see. I think that's a really good idea. I think the closest thing we have is the starships, which really is not the same thing as like having like a star killer base, if you will, like in Star Wars, or Death Star or what have you. I guess is this Death Star? Yeah, we'll call it a stronghold, some sort of star base. Cool. Can't do Grimdark without cyberware. Yes, and I feel like cyberware is definitely a thing that you really need for cyberpunk. It's like a staple in cyberpunk that you have cyberware. One of the game I ran of Last Parsec, we did have someone who had cyberware, and one of the best players I've ever had. I loved her character because basically she was a child soldier that had a bunch of cyberware implants that were given to her as a child soldier, and she kind of played that side of things, and it was great. Yeah, that was like my favorite campaign I ever ran. It was so good. Anyways, cool. Yeah, and I think that actually brings up another question, Xavier, is how dark are they willing to go in the Sci-Fi Companion for certain settings, like Cyberpunk, where things tend to be a little bit darker. I expect that it's going to come in with setting rules. There'll probably be some much darker like setting rules. I also imagine that we are going to need some better rules for hacking. I know Carl over at Tabletop Tango has talked about having a hard time finding hacking rules that he likes. And it seems like even like Shadowrun, it seems like people have like iffy times when it comes to Shadowrun and how they like Shadowrun's hacking system. So I think it's definitely going to be important to get a good hacking system put into these into the book. But I also can see that part of the book just won't be used by a lot of people. Or maybe have a simpler version of hacking versus the more complicated version of hacking that's more cyberpunk, and then more just like generic, like, hey, I need to hack it, get into this door open because we're on a base and I just need to get it open real quick and just wire around, which could be electronics repair, I guess, but probably still could use hacking. Yeah. And robots. Robots are important too. I imagine there's going to be a lot more robot options. Yeah. Cool. All right. So like I said, I plan on doing these streams more often. Minimum, I want to do these once a month where we, again, I kind of talk about any news that's happening, what's going on in the Sad Rolls community, things that have come up recently, or new products or announcements of any sort, and then just kind of diving into another topic. If you have ideas for topics you want me to talk about as just like a more, not like a dedicated video topic, but more of a just say, hey, let's just have a discussion and talk about this. Nothing right or wrong. Let me know. Some of the ideas I have for other things that I'm still struggling with a reckless attack. And if I'm okay with the way it is currently, I think it needs tweaking, or if I think I just want to get rid of it. So that's like one topic I want to talk about, and love to hear your guys' opinions on that. Not just like answer my polls, but like, you know, writing out opinions. And I might even get my one of my good friends. I'm gonna call him Maverick because I'm Goose. His name's Eric, and I just think like Maverick would be cooler because like Goose, Maverick, Top Gun. And then another conversation is Savage Worlds actually fast? Some of the comments I've seen recently bring up a lot of that question of is Savage Worlds actually fast? Because they bring up all these different pieces of Savage Worlds to talk about, is it fast? So that's another conversation I want to talk about someday. But I think that's all I have for today. Thanks for joining me. If you have any questions, you know, feel free to leave them in the comment section below. And also, how other people run plot point campaigns. Is there other ways to run plot point campaigns? I'll put it on the list. I'll put it on the list, Xavier, because I don't know if anyone else but me in my gaming group knows what a plot point campaign is exactly. So, but I will add that to the list. So I might have to get a different person to come in and talk about that. So, but absolutely, how other people run plot point campaigns. We'll say I do enjoy plot point campaigns. I kind of miss them. I ran ETU and it technically had a plot point campaign, but there was so much assumption that there was space in between, and kind of figuring out what was in between was not easy. Whereas when I ran the plot point campaign inside of Last Parsec, it was a nice natural transition from one thing to the other for the players. In fact, I actually had to jump ahead one section because they decide, hey, we're gonna, you know, we should go investigate this thing. I was like, okay, cool, yeah, you just jump ahead to that plot point instead. And the fact that just having like these smaller, like not overly detailed sections, like giving you the basics of bare bones that let you as a GM kind of make up things. Okay, I'm getting ahead of myself. So yes, good idea. We'll kind of talk about that. Like I said, I want to do this at least once a month. I thought about maybe doing it once a week as sort of like a news update kind of thing, and then just going on about topic. But I think that's all I have for today. Thanks for joining me. I'm probably going to clip this video out to different sections, and yeah, we'll talk to you guys all either within a month or next week. Like I said, I want to figure out what that schedule is. You all have a great night.